Hey guys, I'm ShawNshawN. I sell art on ShawNshawN.co and specials on eBay. Today we're going to check out Proko Potenko. Stan Proko Potenko. He just goes by Proko because his last name is a little difficult. Let's get into it, guys. Okay, so one of the key things Stan is known for is drawing. So his YouTube channel is primarily focused on how to draw. So let's check out this video, Top Shading Mistakes.
Hey guys, I'm Stan Proko. I've been teaching drawing and painting for 10 years now. I've seen a lot of portfolios. I've critiqued thousands of assignments. And the problems I saw in student work back when I first started teaching are the same ones I'm still seeing now. These are fundamental issues that don't change with the latest version of Photoshop or even what century you live in. Before we jump in, I want to quickly mention that I'm working on a drawing basics course. It's meant to be a new artist's first course. Get you started doing the right things and hit the ground running. If you don't want to miss it when it comes out, get on the newsletter at proko.com/subscribe. So here are 5 shading mistakes you're probably making and how to fix them.
So I think what's really cool is he has a really nice slow pace. Even he's been teaching a lot before he started the YouTube channel. So now that he's doing the YouTube channel, the teaching really comes across really well. So let's keep going.
Number 5, icing before the cake. I meet artists all the time who are just starting out and they're practicing techniques and anatomy and shading details and all this really cool stuff, but it's not making their drawings better. Why is that? While they're focused on all the fancy, fun stuff, they're making huge proportion mistakes. Their perspective is off, and their gesture is stiff. That's not even icing before the cake. That's icing without the cake. You gotta build your pictures and your skills with the fundamentals first. Each concept builds on the last. Surface stuff like anatomy, techniques, and rendering details are all at the tippity top. Awesome, but initially unnecessary and less important than the stuff at the bottom. You can't shade correctly if you don't know the simple form. You can't draw the simple form if you don't understand perspective. The forms don't matter if you can't draw a straight line, keep your proportions in check, or establish a dynamic pose. This is a drawing I did a few years into my studies.
So it's really interesting. He talks about the correct way to do a drawing. So you kind of start off with the really basic building blocks, get your perspective. You can check out my video on scale divider. That'll give you a really easy way to get your proportions right off the bat really correct. And it also doesn't develop as a crutch. And then from there, he's getting the basic shapes, which is really interesting. He starts this really blocky, chunky, almost like you would as a sculpture, and you kind of cut back the major shapes. And then he kind of fine-tunes. And so it's really interesting the way Stan works, because I don't really work like that. I work straight into the shading, which probably is wrong. You probably should get those basic shapes right first. I think that makes sense in the sense that if you get those basic shapes first, you know where the major shadows are, the major highlights are going to be. And so you can adjust those and say, hey, all this side has to be light, you know, because you know that's the basic form. So let's keep going.
If you think it's really good, you've fallen for my tricks. At this point in my development, I got good at shading, but it's filled with structural errors. I didn't really understand form. I just learned some effective tricks to make the drawings appear 3D. An exaggerated core shadow, some reflected light, and a bright highlight as a cherry on top. Wow, it's so easy. But it's all just a cheap distraction from the uninformed construction. The icing might be the part that makes it look pretty or makes it stand out, but icing by itself, it's gross. It's empty calories. Remember this every time you want to draw eyelashes before the eye socket.
So yeah, this is a really funny thing. He's kind of switching back and forth between the drawing and these kind of headshots straight on, and then he's added this kind of funny symbolism, metaphor for drawing, which is the dessert with just the topping versus the actual meat of the pie, or the fruit of the pie.
Number 4, bad reference.
Whoa, hold up guys. I just got tagged, and I've got to take a selfie. Let's see. First, camera up high. Very slimming. Kind of dark in here. Turn the flash on. Click. All right, now I've got to choose a nice filter. Tweak that a little bit. Perfect.
We've distorted and edited the out of that photo. It might be flattering or maybe even a good photo, but photography and drawing are two different fields. Something that makes a good photo won't necessarily make good reference for drawing. You won't be able to draw something like this from a photo like this. Drawing from bad photos is super common, but super easy to fix. I wrote a blog post about it ages ago, so you can go there for a more detailed lesson on what makes good photo reference. But to paraphrase, don't use overexposed or underexposed photos. Don't use flat lit or flash lit photos. Don't use blurry photos. Don't use photos with extreme lens distortion. Don't use tiny photos. Make sure the resolution is high enough so you can at least see the forms of the nostrils and eyelids. And don't use Photoshop photos from magazines. When looking for reference, look for photos with good lighting and clear shadows.
Yeah, so this is a really good video. I really like how he's kind of covering the topic. I'm going to skip forward to the next video. So this other video, he kind of sits down with a fellow artist and he's discussing the boosting productivity and advice for young artists when you're just starting out. So let's get to the beginning of this.
From when I wake up to when I go to sleep. And I was like, okay, well, this is obviously a problem. How do you not see this? And then he started trying to justify it by saying, oh, but TV gives me, it inspires me, and these video games inspire me. And I was like, no, man, if they inspired you, it would inspire you to stop watching TV and go do something with that inspiration.
So this is a good point about popular media and sidetracking artists. It's very common. Now we have the next layer besides TV and video games. You have social media on top of that, which is a real challenge for artists in the sense that you have to be on social media to share your artwork, but you don't want to end up consuming too much of the information. You do want to reply to the comments and the likes and kind of have that interaction with people that directly like your stuff. And a little bit of other artists so you can show that you're actually following them, but you don't want to go much more into that, and it's very easy to fall off the cliff and just be scrolling, and it's just a super waste of time. So you just got to be very, very careful when you use social media as an artist to post, get your content out there, hit it hard, and make great content, not just uploading video for video's sake. A lot of people do that. It looks okay. If you're doing a painting tutorial, like say Jose Trujillo, he does it and he just kind of puts his phone on a stand and shoots it. That's okay. You're doing an instructional video. But if you're just kind of saying, hey, I'm at the movies, I do that. But I mean, those aren't great things if you just kind of wonder, here's my dinner or this, and you're not, and your business isn't dinner, and your business isn't food. If you're a food cuisine critiquer, yeah, that makes sense to do shots of food, but why would you do it as an artist? So you kind of want to be very careful of how you choose your activities outside of drawing to get better drawing.
If it inspires you to just watch more TV, that's not inspiring. That's just addiction, right?
Yes.
So I told him, like, you got to get disciplined. Watching TV is not helping you become a better artist.
So I'm going to skip that, go a little bit ahead.
In nutrition, you go out and you exercise it out by making your own movies. Okay, you mentioned creating an environment. You had something to say about that?
I guess everyone has their own environment, but my big thing is to remove distractions. So if you have a bunch of tabs open in your browser that have notifications popping up, or if your phone is on and you have a lot of pop-ups coming up and all of those distract you, or if you can hear.
Yeah, so that's a really huge one on your phone. What you can do is just go in here, go into your settings, look up all the notifications, turn off every single thing that you really don't need. Only have, like, say, your phone. Obviously, you want to hear the phone call. Email maybe, but you can just check it periodically. So really, you don't even need email. You don't need text messaging. I would turn that off as well. Maybe you keep text messaging, but you probably turn off your WhatsApp, your Instagram, your Facebook. Turn off all of those things that are just like beep, 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 beep on your phone. That's going to distract you and break your concentration and make you really poor executor of good stuff, because sometimes like any activity like a drawing or a painting or doing this video, for example, it might take you like 5-10 minutes to kind of get into it, and then you kind of hit the ground running. But if you have this thing going beep, 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 beep every like 10 seconds, you're really not going to get a good flow on it. You're going to be distracted. Oh, I got to check my Instagram while I'm doing the videos. Like, that's going to look stupid, right? So you don't want to do that. Let's keep going.
Your friends in the other room playing video games. That's every single one of those things is going to tempt you to step away from what you're doing.
Okay, so like get rid of distractions. Let's go forward.
But you can create a productive environment in a small room. I had a small bedroom in my parents' house, and I was extremely productive in that.
You started Proko in there.
I started Proko. I built that in a closet.
I remember it.
We could talk about that later, but
Yeah.
like, you could be productive as long as you remove distractions. I feel like you could. It's not about the size of the space; it's about what you do with it. That. Shawn.
So this is kind of slow, so I'm going to kind of move on to the next video. So another video he does is really cool, is he does caricature, which is kind of like your advanced drawing in the sense like you've mastered the real natural form and now you're exaggerating it. But you got to figure out what to pick, so let's go take a look at how to exaggerate. I love that tagline, it's great.
Hello, I'm Court Jones, and welcome to the first video in my course on the art of caricature. This series will be divided into two main sections. The first part will cover caricature fundamentals.
So this is kind of interesting. He brings in this other artist onto his channel, so he's got multiple characters coming into the channel. This gives you a cross collaboration, and usually what will happen is you'll get the audiences from both, and they'll find each other artists. And Court Jones will get some of Proko's audience, and Proko will get some of Court Jones' audience, so you just magnify both audiences. So it's a really great technique from a vlogger standpoint.
Art form, or even for experienced caricaturists looking to improve their core skills. The second part will be filled with intermediate and advanced level exercises that are designed to help improve your exaggeration abilities and give you more creative ways to solve caricature problems. As with all the other Proko courses, there will be plenty of free lessons. But we'll also have a premium course with lots of additional demonstrations and longer versions of the free videos. We'll go more in depth on each lesson at proko.com.
So again, it's kind of like he's using this as a preliminary thing to show that you get a little snippets of the potential of learning from Proko, and then his full course is the paid course, which is fine. I think it's a good way to introduce people to the material, get them like a little hooked, and then if they want more and they really want to learn, they're going to take the paid course. That's pretty smart.
.com/caricature. To give you a better idea about me, I've been doing caricatures
skip ahead a little bit.
correctly and intentionally in a caricature. The likeness will be even stronger than the photo. The mechanism which makes that possible is called exaggeration. What is exaggeration? Think about how you're able to recognize a face. Now, the science of facial recognition is complex, and there's a lot going on in the brain that I am not qualified to discuss. But when you see someone you know, one of the things your brain does is compare his face to every other person you've ever seen. Even though the differences between faces are relatively small and can be measured in millimeters, when you put those differences all together on one face, they add up to a totally unique looking person. Facial recognition occurs when our brains notice those traits which differ from the average. In this photo of Gene Wilder, one of the traits that's distinctive about him is his large, downward pointed nose. When we see that feature made even larger and pointed in a caricature, it's an instant cue to our memory of what stands out about Gene Wilder. So when we exaggerate distinctive features in a caricature, we're making those tiny differences in a face more obvious and bringing attention to them, triggering the brain's memory more quickly. Exaggeration is just the act of exploiting the brain's natural ability to recognize one person from another. To illustrate this concept in the simplest terms, think of a perfect square. A square is a visual representation of the average of all rectangles that have ever existed. This perfect square will be rectangle A for average. Now, let's look at a rectangle that is slightly taller than the average. We'll call that rectangle B. If I'm asked to draw a caricature of rectangle B, I just need to observe how it differs from the average of all rectangles, which is our square. We can see that rectangle B is slightly taller than the average. So, in order to caricature it, I'm going to exaggerate how it differs from the square. Rectangle C, with its stretched proportions, is a caricature of rectangle B. The traits that made rectangle B different from the average are now even more obvious.
Of course, I had the advertising right here. So go back here a little bit.
Slightly taller than the average, even more obvious.
So it's really interesting. You see with the squares, the B is just a little bit taller. It's just a little bit higher, so it becomes a rectangle versus square. And so see, the only thing they've exaggerated is that difference, and they kept the proportions on the sides the same. So that's really interesting, the proportion there, how these kept that. Let's skip ahead a little bit.
The average. So his caricature features an even more crooked nose and mouth. I'm pointing out only one feature from each of these actors' faces, but a good caricature takes into account all of the deviations from the average and reshapes all of the proportions. You may have figured out by now, this means that in order to understand how to caricature, you have to be really familiar with the average head. Here's my diagram showing the proportions of the average adult male Caucasian head. You can find diagrams like these in art instruction books. My favorites are those by Andrew Loomis. Every artist should already be familiar with this type of diagram, but this is especially important to those studying caricature. Memorizing the various standard proportions and distances between the features is key to figuring out how to exaggerate each new subject you draw. This diagram will be the basis for all of your caricature decisions. In the premium version of this video, I'll break it down and explain this diagram and its measurements.
So I think you get a good feel of what these videos are about. It has really good in-depth teaching videos. So we covered the shading mistakes. He also does several types of drawing. He's done the boosting productivity speech with these kind of one-on-one with an artist. It's very long, so it's a little bit different to kind of edit down to like a little snippet. And he's also doing this caricature video. So it's all about, you know, all his teaching is on Proko, YouTube, and then it boils down to his paid course. So it's a really strong focus on getting people to go from the free stuff to the paid stuff. And so he's really strong at teaching. You can see that with great diagramming, good inserts. He has his logo right in the corner, Proko, the whole time, so you know, hey, this is the artist who it is. And then he has the generic subscribe in the corner. I might have done like Proko subscribe at the bottom because you have that option, but he might have done his video before they had that option to YouTube, so who knows. Mine says like SS subscribe because SS is my kind of condensed version of ShawNshawN, so hopefully you remember that and not the Nazis. Yeah, it has really good information here, and he also did that video with Cesar Santos, which I covered in Cesar's video, which is actually Proko's video, but they kind of sit down at the museum and they kind of analyze things. And so he's a really strong teacher to learn how to draw. And if you want to learn how to teach and sell those teaching courses from a free version to like a paid version, he's a really good resource. If you're great at painting or drawing or landscapes or abstract, you can kind of study Proko's version and take some of those lessons and put it into your own videos, and you'll make a great training course from the free to paid version that Proko's designed. So hope you guys like it. Check out Proko. He's obviously an awesome resource on YouTube, and hopefully check out my channel as well. Thanks for watching, guys.